Hello, hello out there to all Cancer people. I am Poetic Heretic, and this is your February 2020 tarot forecast. I will be giving you a Celtic Cross reading for the month of February 2020. See what insight we can gain into your life this month. All right, and of course, as always, this applies whether you are a Cancer sun, rising, and or moon. Okay, so we would like a Celtic Cross reading for all Cancer people for the month of February 2020. Let's see what we get. What will be the energy for the sign of Cancer, February 2020? Oh, look at that. We got it already. Okay, let the games begin. The Wheel of Fortune. Strength reversed. The Three of Swords. The Nine of Pentacles. The Knight of Swords. Temperance. The King of Wands reversed. The Two of Pentacles. The Nine of Swords. And a final outcome card of the Nine of Cups reversed. Okay, so let's take a look here. Also, is it just me or is this camera a little off in some way? It doesn't look the way it normally does. I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining things tonight, but anyway. So you're beginning the month with the Wheel of Fortune card. Changes abound. Things are happening. Life cycles, destiny, fate is often indicated by this card. And so basically you're starting the month of February with a lot of changes, very likely, a lot of new developments. The wheel of life is turning and turning and turning. And indeed, there is the possibility of rather fated developments, like fateful changes, encounters, rendezvous. So the situation in your life could change significantly in a very fateful way. You may meet a particular person that affects your life in a very fateful way. Whenever we see the Wheel of Fortune, we know that destiny and fate, or at the very least changes, are very much being activated. And so that's what you have starting off the month here. For your challenge card, you got Strength, and it did come up reverse, but let's just look at it upright. So in a very basic sense, Strength as your challenge card is saying using your mind to rein in your darker emotions, or to tame the beast within you, as the imagery of the card suggests. So saying that your challenge this month is to tame that which is more volatile and primitive or whatever within you. Some other manifestations of this card, though, showing up for the challenge card could be like ego problems, like either an overinflated ego or an ego that is not strong enough. Could be kind of either end of that spectrum. Like, it's never good to have an overinflated ego, but it's also never good to have a weak, unhealthy ego. It's important that we believe in ourselves as needed, when needed. So I would say be aware of that. I've also seen this card manifest as, at other times, simply low energy. And it's interesting how it's crossing over the Wheel of Fortune card. It's almost like the cards are saying that changes are taking place for you early in February, and they may just be exhausting on some level. And so that could be a particular challenge. But speaking of believing in oneself, that really speaks to the energy of this card as well. That's a big theme with this card, is this idea of like having faith in oneself, having faith in your own abilities, and having like a sort of strength of character, I would say. So any or all of those can play into sort of your challenge, or maybe even think of it as your theme for this month. Like what is going to maybe help you get to where you're wanting to go. For the underlying energy, you got the Three of Swords. I don't know, I guess a lot of people think this card is rather frightening and negative. It can be. It can indicate a broken heart and sorrow and things of this nature, but this is the underlying energy for the month. This is what is like supporting you, or what is reflective of your immediate environment. So there could be people around you that are feeling sad or melancholy, or yes, it could be you. You may have just recently gotten over a situation, and as I sort of look here with the Nine of Pentacles in the past and some of these other cards that are showing up, I think maybe this is possible. Like you went through, got over, and or are still getting over a situation, a difficult situation, and it's still affecting you this month. There's still an amount of pain or whatever. But we also see this card manifesting, or at least I do in my practice, as, in a more positive sense, like a willingness to really tell it like it is, to speak the truth and that sort of thing. And so there may be some harsh words that are coming out this month, likely from you, like things that maybe have been building up inside you for some time that need to be said, that need to be communicated. And this is the month where that happens. We also see a potential indicator of that with the Knight of Swords coming up. So do be aware of that. We have, of course, the planet of communication, Mercury, going retrograde this month in the sign of Pisces. And so that is often a time where communication gets intensified, and things that need to be said that maybe aren't so comfortable for people to hear are said. But nevertheless, you got to look these injustices straight in the face and tell them that you're not going to just put up with them. For the past, as I mentioned, the Nine of Pentacles. So this is like representative of stuff that has happened to you in the recent or maybe not so recent past, and perhaps issues you've had to deal with. As I connect it to what I'm seeing here in this reading, it's almost like a lot of you perhaps were maybe in an unhappy relationship or some kind of unhappy connection with someone that you're just now getting out of. And thus we have like the Wheel of Fortune for your current outside influences. The changes are happening. And also that Three of Swords. But this card can also just, in a more generalized sense, indicate like wealth and abundance and things going well, maybe in that area, but a sense of like loneliness or something not quite being right. That's something that, I don't know, is not always pointed out with this card, like different tarot sources out there that I've read. Only some seem to notice that there's a vibe in this card of like something just not quite being right. And I always think of that when I see it, and I always sense that with it. And I don't think that's just my imagination either. I mean, look at the expression on her face. Look at how there's a snail nearby. Like, what's up with that? She's alone. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's too much of a stretch. But anyway, in a more positive sense, though, this card can also indicate just indeed like material wealth and luxury and gain and stuff like that. So maybe some of you have had some really good luck recently that is then continuing with that Wheel of Fortune. But regardless, that's what we have. It's also the first of, let's see here, 1, 2, 3 nines in your reading. So that ninth house of education and higher learning, of belief systems, of spirituality, of your ideals, all of that is powerfully activated for you this month. And so expect that to be a theme indeed, especially with, just to jump around a bit, Temperance coming up in the near future, which is all about, in many ways anyway, that ninth house energy with its Sagittarian rulership. Now, I have to say, I do not think it's a good idea at all to conflate signs with houses. You'll end up messing up the houses if you do that. However, I will admit it is true. There does appear to be some amount of crossover between them at times. And that's certainly true with the energy of Sagittarius in the ninth house to some extent anyway, and like Jupiter in the ninth house. So basically what this means for you is there's a lot of indicators of education and higher learning, of belief systems and spirituality, your ideals, your worldview, all of that being activated in a very powerful way, or I should say any or all of those ninth house topics being activated in a very powerful way for you this month, February 2020. So for what you hope to achieve, you got the Nine of Swords. Speaking of such ideas and stuff like that, this is a very intellectual card. It is, of course, an air card. It is technically fire of air, or the fiery aspect of air. So many of you may indeed be sort of wanting to see things from a new perspective this month, and that sort of thing. This is like what you hope to achieve, what your highest hope is, what your goal is this month, what your mind is focused upon. There's also, I think, very likely a connection with that Three of Swords energy that we looked at earlier, with this idea, again, fiery aspect of air. So the intense passion, the sort of aggressive, willful passion for the intellect, for intellectual stuff, for communication. And so this desire to sort of aggressively tell it like it is, to aggressively communicate. And so that's interesting for you as Cancer, a water sign, channeling the more aggressive aspects of yourself, because that's not normally something that's in your nature. But as I look at these cards here, the combination of them, it's almost like a lot of you have had some stuff building up inside of you for quite some time, and it's time to release it. It's time to express it, so that, wretched imbalances don't go on unchecked. For the near future, representing particularly about the first week or two of the month, you got Temperance. So as I showed a little bit ago, Temperance, this card is all about the integration of opposites, the integration of extremes, in addition to the sort of Sagittarian vibe of it that I mentioned earlier. This is about integration of opposing polarities, and the idea of alchemy, essentially. And so you may find in the first week or two of the month, especially, that perhaps this is the story that comes to my mind anyway. Perhaps after some things that need to be said have been said, you find yourself able to make peace with what's happening or has happened. In other words, this card, so much of the time, and probably more than anything else, is all about like a peacefulness as a result of integration of opposing polarities, making peace with things as they are. And it's almost like it's even saying that by saying the things that need to be said and or letting go of the pain in the past, you are making peace with things. You are integrating those opposites or reconciling those sort of opposing energies or that inner conflict or whatever, and finding that much greater peace. Now, that's one side of it. On the other hand, let us, of course, again, remember and mention all of this stuff about that ninth house energy that is so powerfully active in your reading. This card, with its Sagittarian and Jupiterian rulership, is also very often all about belief systems, ideas and ideals, philosophy, metaphysics, religion. It is about abundance. It's about increase, especially with it following the Wheel of Fortune. Like, I know that this reading has seemed maybe a bit negative at times so far, but there's almost a subtle indicator here of perhaps a number of you experiencing like financial and or material increase this month, like greater abundance this month. There's a sort of subtle implication of that, or maybe not so subtle with these two cards showing up in this way. So yeah, it's a very very like spiritual month for you guys, it does look like. All right, so for your attitude or position on the situation, about halfway through the month, you got the King of Wands reversed. So this could have you feeling not quite as assertive and aggressive as maybe you would like to feel, and I think that ties back into what we've been going over. There's, again, I think something that has been building up within a lot of you for a while now, and it's ready for expression. It needs expression and wants expression. The reason this is reversed is because that has been blocked for some time, and it's ready to come out. But it's reiterating, though, the challenging aspect of that assertive expression of whatever it is, whatever needs to be expressed, I would say. There's also the possibility, of course, with this being a court card, and the reversal, that maybe there's an adult male fire sign in your life that you're having some level of conflict with. Maybe this person is part of the overall issue here. So fire sign, that would be Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius. So if you know any of them, that may be them indeed. For the outside force coming in, you got the Two of Pentacles. This is something and or someone or some situation coming at you, not necessarily you yourself. In light of what we've already been over, particularly with the Wheel of Fortune card, this is most likely the idea of like ups and downs coming your way, more changes, more developments, something that may be a bit of a curveball, I would say, that requires you to have to indeed juggle things, as the imagery of the card suggests. However, this can also be, or well, I guess they could be the same thing, but more specifically, this can also be like a new job opportunity or financial opportunity, a situation where you have to spend some in order to get some. So like a business type of opportunity, perhaps something coming your way. But again, there's a lot of stuff in this reading that is indicating ups and downs. So be aware of those. In your hopes or fears, of course, you got the Nine of Swords, another 9. Nine of Swords is very often indeed about worrying about things, as the imagery suggests, the insomniac, and et cetera, et cetera. However, it can also be a sort of spiritual awakening. It can be getting in touch with one's own humanity and sort of dealing with the uncomfortable realities of things, the cruel realities of life. Now, fortunately, however, this is only showing up in your hopes or fears, and so it's not necessarily reflective of anything literally manifesting, but it is showing that many of you this month you're worried about being worried, if that makes sense. You're worried about these uncomfortable realities getting to you, creating inner conflict, and wondering if you're going to be able to process them in a healthy way, I would say. That, and or have whatever like spiritual awakening or spiritual perspective on them that you think that you ought to have. And I would try to give advice on that, but that's a highly individualized thing. For the final outcome card, how you are concluding the month of February 2020, you got the Nine of Cups reversed. Yet another 9, ninth house of belief systems, ideals, philosophy, and spirituality, all that stuff. Yet again, another indicator of that being very much activated for you this month. Nine of Cups reversed. It can manifest sometimes as so positive, like when it's upright, that even when it's reversed, it's still rather positive, and there's an element of satisfaction or enjoyment of oneself. But it can also just as easily manifest negatively as disappointments and dissatisfaction and not quite getting to what you wanted to get to. Now, so that may be how the month of February ends for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. However, remember that, well, first of all, we're not seeing any indicators here of truly difficult scenarios. You know, like we're not seeing the Tower card or the Devil card or anything like that. We're just seeing some mild indicators of difficulty. Second of all, remember that Mercury, as I mentioned earlier, goes retrograde this month. And so this sort of incompletion of not yet having reached the satisfaction, or maybe not yet having reached the clarity on whatever sort of new perspective you feel is being called forth from you this month, could just be the Mercury retrograde. You know, you don't tend to get clear about things during a Mercury retrograde, especially when it's happening in the sign of Pisces. Like it's literally where Mercury is in its fall. Like Mercury does not do well in Pisces, and that's where it's going retrograde this year. So it may be that things are just being delayed by the end of the month, and it's not that things are oh so bad and disappointing. Well, they may be, but it's like either way, you're just going to have to patiently wait until March or maybe early April at the latest for things to really make progress in that way. However, remember, you started this reading with the Wheel of Fortune. So your month is definitely starting with some changes. Some things are happening early in the month, but then as Mercury slows down and turns retrograde in the middle of the month, by the end of the month, things are slowed down and you haven't reached the satisfaction yet. And yes, there may be an element of disappointment, sadness, dissatisfaction, hurt feelings, etc., etc. But the message then is just be patient. It's not over yet. You know, give it another few weeks till like March, particularly late March or early April. All right, so that's about it, Cancer. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a magnificent month of February. If you enjoyed this, feel free to like and subscribe if you would like. I'm always posting, streaming astrology and tarot-related content to this channel, so you can subscribe if you'd like to see more of that. Other than that, that's about it. Thanks for the likes. I see I got 2 likes while I recorded this live or broadcast this live. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And other than that, have a great night, and again, a great month of February 2020.